Hello, today is July 8th. It's Wednesday, my dudes, and we're just doing business today. That's the only category that's available. So
A
it's a long section.
thick amount of business this week because there wasn't a whole lot of
THICC.
anything else. And first, let's talk about Apple. Now, if you'll recall last week, Apple has these interesting new features, and you got to give them credit for it. It's not often we'll give Apple credit on this channel, but I'm going to give them credit for this. When things are trying to track you or copy your clipboard or do all the nefarious things that they do on mobile, Apple will now pop up and be like, hey, this app wants to do this. Are you sure you're going to let it? And people are like, wow, look at all these apps that were just spying on me relentlessly. And guess who isn't too happy about that?
Reuters has the article about Google-backed groups criticize Apple's new warnings on user tracking. Apple is playing right into Google is playing right into Apple's hands. Yeah.
They have a great quote here. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but it's something like, and this is when the legal speak comes in and they start talking about real truth. Oh yeah, here we go. A little bit of self-awareness, maybe.
A high risk of user refusal. It's like, yeah. Users are going to refuse to accept this.
Because no one wants it.
Yeah. That's what a lot of advertisers don't really realize, that all the millions upon millions of dollars that they've sunk into their tracking and analytics platforms, the value of that right now is dubious. But in another couple of years, the value for that is going to be near zero, because you're not going to be allowed to do that kind of tracking. You're going to have to do it a different way.
Well, the other big Apple revelation was the ARM processor that they will be building themselves and cutting all of the third parties out.
With ARM's help, of course.
And the big question is, though, well, we know now that they're going to emulate. Everybody kind of suspected it, but now we know they're going to emulate x86, so you can still keep using your apps. But how well is that going to perform? And they've actually sent out some sample kits, and compared to actual x86, it is not great. But if we compare it to other emulation, we can look to Microsoft, who did their own ARM version of the Surface. How does it compare to that?
First, Apple Silicon benchmarks destroy the Surface Pro X. So that was the Qualcomm Snapdragon Surface. It was reviewed about a year ago. It is about a year old. That Geekbench score, it's about 800. 850, something like that. Now, technically, these developer kit Macs are not supposed to be benchmarked. As part of your Apple developer agreement, you're not allowed to disclose the performance. But somehow they did, or Geekbench leaked it because it was not a pay-for copy. It's a score of 811 and a multi-core score of 2871.
Yeah. So
the Surface Pro only managed 764 versus 2983. That's not a huge difference, to be clear, but it's pretty big.
Nowhere near what you would get with actual x86. But again, you expect some loss with emulation. It's a question of how much. And it seems like maybe Apple has kind of figured it out. We'll see. And I guess we have to say that Apple giveth and Apple taketh away, because they've given us security tools. That's nice. They've given us a new ARM processor. I guess, people have differing opinions on that. But when it comes to the iPhone, a dubious decision. Now, they have not announced this, but a lot of people are predicting it.
The iPhone 12 probably won't include the charger in the box. 20-watt power adapter will be sold separately, and probably no earphones or earbuds. So they were never going to include the wireless ones.
That's exactly what you will get. I like how they have the plastic that it came in, but it's empty. This is a great picture from Mac Rumors. No, now, what percentage of people do you think would be an iPhone user but don't have a USB port to use to charge anywhere in their house?
0%.
I think there's got to be some of them.
I think it's more crappy that how it was like a generation or two ago, you could do the fast charging thing, but it didn't come with a fast charge USB charger. So then people immediately bought a second charger that would enable them to do fast charging. That's what they're basing this decision on, I'm sure, because people that paid $1,000 for their iPhone also bought the accessory power adapter, which will charge faster than the power adapter in the box. And they're like, hey, most people that bought a phone also were willing to buy a charger, so we just got our market testing out of the way. We don't have to include a charger because most people are willing to buy a charger anyway.
Also,
That's so crazy that you're buying such like an expensive piece of software that doesn't work unless you charge it, and it doesn't come with a charger. Like,
Yeah.
how many Chinese manufacturers are firing up production of iPhone chargers just so they can drop that malware in there over USB?
There have been some amazing, like some hackers have produced really authentic looking charge cables. Like it's just a USB cable and it's still capable of dropping malware on the phone.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. Apple News. So Apple has a news collection service similar to Google News. And as we've covered a lot, there's kind of a contentious relationship between those news collation services and the news creators themselves, because they're like, hey, you're using our content to create your thing. And they're like, no, dude, we're just linking to you. It's different. Now, in Apple's case, they don't actually link to you. They just sort of like regurgitate your content right there in the Apple app, which has angered some of the big players.
New York Times removes its articles from Apple News and wants to build direct relationships with its paying readers. It went on to explain that, you know, it's been doing this thing with Apple for a few years now, and in so doing, it really doesn't feel like it's building direct relationships with its readers. It wants people to use its app. It wants people to pay it directly, and that's just not happening.
Also, that 30%.
30%, yeah. Now, wasn't it supposed to be less than 30% when a subscription is involved?
No, I think it's like the first year, right? And then they cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's less than 30. Matt, was it 15?
It was something smaller, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Still seems like robbery, though.
yeah, and they point out that, you know, if it's Apple is serving from their own server, not from New York Times server. So then they lose that tracking and all that, and that's kind of the business model now, as disgusting as that is. Tesla. We've been just crazy headlines out of Tesla when it comes to the stock price. It's always kind of been the case. It's a bit of a roller coaster, although right now the roller coaster has been going up pretty consistently ever since the world went crazy. And now a new milestone that is just mind-blowing.
Tesla becomes the most valuable automaker in latest stock rally. Yeah, you heard it here first. Well, probably not, but Tesla is more valuable than Toyota? What?
Also, more valuable than Ford and GM combined.
What?
Maybe multiples of that.
I don't. It's hard for me to imagine how that's true. But then, you remember the Mercedes Nvidia article from yesterday's news? The software component of that autonomous thing. I mean, Tesla has a larger data set than anybody to be able to use to train their thing.
I don't think this is based on actual business performance. I think
No.
this is stock market.
Yeah, it's just stock market. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about like potential for like if Tesla is able to lock up that autonomy, then everybody's going to have to buy their software because
see-
they're just so many years ahead.
Again, I don't think the modern investor is looking at any of that. I don't think they look at the companies. I think they're looking at the stock price and how it's performed. And it's that fear of missing out. And they're just piling in to get those big gains.
we had to do a stock market game when I was like in 8th grade where you had to like, you know, pick stocks and invest them. And then for the whole semester, you kept it all in a spreadsheet to see how well you did. And everyone was universally bad at it. And it feels like we're just playing that game right now. It's just 8th grade all over again.
But if in the 8th grade you'd actually like followed the curriculum and learned about, you know, like earnings per share and market projections and stuff like that, it would be useless to you because no one cares about that anymore.
Yeah.
It's just a big casino at this point. It's a big
That's how
casino,
it felt.
and chips are just showering from the ceiling at all times. But don't worry, nothing bad's going to happen.
But you know what? You can invest in Level 1 with that Patreon and or float plane membership.
There are no returns.
There are no. Yeah, the returns is the
Watch
smiles on our happy faces every week as we bring you
And then you get a
the
podcast. They get podcast every month.
That's true. And, who can put a value on the podcast? It's really priceless.
The last few have been a little depressing, but that's fine.
The world's a little depressing right now, Kristen.
Yeah.
Zoom. So we all know the story of Zoom. They, came out of nowhere and took the world by storm because we didn't really have a choice. They kind of won the teleconferencing war with their ease of use. And then they hit that little snag where it was like, wait a minute, you're not actually encrypting anything. You've lied to us. And they're like, no, we're going to. And during all that troublesome time, they made a promise. They were going to do a full transparency report. They just had to get it together first.
Zoom misses its own deadline to publish its first transparency report. Oh no. It's still not out as of the time that we're recording this. So they were going to have a report that just is like, okay, this is all the stuff. This is encryption. This is what we're doing. And how many government demands have we had for this, that, and the other? No, there's none of that.
Do you think that maybe they just hadn't actually looked into it yet? And after they put it together, they're like, ooh.
Yeah. I think
that's exactly. Look good at all. That's a big number.
It's like, Tim, I haven't met you since I hired you like 3 years ago when we were a startup. What have you been doing? And his hair is all messed up. And he's like, I've fielded thousands and thousands of requests from 70 governments. I've been barely holding it together for you guys.
So, yeah, I'm sure that'll be disappointing when it comes out, if it comes out. Now, do you remember the hot controversy of Learn to Code?
Yeah.
Oh, that was hate speech.
Yeah,
remember
Twitter.
When that was hate speech.
Yeah, Twitter was like, this is, they suspended some people because it was like,
you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to do that. But Microsoft and LinkedIn are offering a plan to their displaced employees that sounds a lot like Learn to Code.
Microsoft and LinkedIn to retrain unemployed workers for in-demand jobs. The companies will offer free training programs for 10 roles, such as software developer, found to be the most sought after using LinkedIn data.
And remember, if you have bad internet, just learn to code. Don't worry about that. You don't need infrastructure to learn how to do it.
Software developer number one. Graphic designer on the list, not number one.
If that was a veiled criticism of me, I don't hear it and I won't respond to it.
Now, if you are an Amazon employee, you are probably not facing that unemployment unless you speak out against their treatment of the pandemic. You are instead being worked to the bone because they're killing it and they need more and more employees. They need more and more work. Unfortunately, they've decided to stop giving you that extra $2, which a lot of people thought was a bad move. But maybe this will make you feel better.
Amazon to pay $500 million in bonuses to workers most exposed to the thing. It's giving out one-time bonuses to its frontline employees. This seems pretty crappy.
It's not a ton of money. See, 500 for the lowest, or no, the lowest tier is 150. So here we go. Partner drivers 500, part-time drivers 250, leadership positions 1,000, delivery service partners. What do you think a delivery service partner is? Is that the guy that runs the drivers?
I think it's probably the guy that owns the van and self-delivers.
Yeah.
And flex drivers, what is a flex driver? 150.
Maybe the flex driver is like the Uber, where it's like, I'll take some packages today.
My question is, how is the guy who owns the truck place a quote-unquote frontline worker who deserves more than the person who's handling hundreds of packages every day?
Because that's the person who convinces those poor drivers to keep doing that terrible job.
I don't know. One of the guys that brings packages here just randomly drops it off with neighbors. He's like, "Oh, your neighbor had a lot of packages, so I left all your packages there too." And it's like,
there was this. I think it was an Amazon worker. There was a story where a guy had gotten a job. Yeah, he was doing the Amazon driving, and he tweeted or put a video online or something. And he was like, "F this driving stuff. This is too hard to work. Here's where the van is. The keys are in it, and the packages are in the back."
Wow.
Mergers. The big mobile merger happened, and the fallout is shaking out all these things that they promised would never happen. Although I think we did suspect this one was going to happen.
Sprint 5G is no more as T-Mobile focuses on its own network. Yeah, we knew this was coming. Remember how it was like, we'll be able to combine things? And we were like, no, that's not going to happen. Nope. And then they were like, no, really, let it happen. Yeah, it's not happening.
You will get credit toward switching over to T-Mobile. You don't get free credit. I don't know how much credit you get. I doubt it's more than 25%.
I wonder if I could bring in some ancient junker phones from like 20 years ago to Sprint and just be like, can we
tow it in if you have to? We'll take your trade. The other thing that we knew was on a timer was the goodwill that the ISPs were throwing toward their customers and all of this horribleness. And actually, at this point, it has already expired. We are now back to business as usual.
With the R value being over 1 for 83% of states in the U.S., data caps on Comcast, T-Mobile, etc. return on July 1. Yeah, so you're still working from home. They don't care.
Also,
late fees are back, too.
Late fees and disconnections will resume.
We've decided the pandemic is over, and now you will all pay for it.
Yeah.
Evictions have not resumed, at least here.
It's supposed to start August, I think. So prepare your butt for some real civil unrest when that happens.
So you get to stay in your home for another month, but without internet.
This is not good.
So Verily is a company that Alphabet gobbled up once upon a time. And like all companies right now, they are desperately trying to figure out how to signal that they are with it with the new outrage police. We got to do something. What are we going to do? And what they've decided is they're going to invest a bunch of money into initiatives for, equality and all that kinds of stuff. But the question, no one's questioning that. But the question is where does that money come from? And the answer is unpleasant if you work for them.
Alphabet-owned Verily suspended employee bonuses to fund diversity initiatives. What? Okay, the headline is slightly misleading. There's two kinds of bonuses, like the regular employee performance bonuses. Those are not suspended, but this is what's called like a spot bonus. So I'm not sure exactly how that works, but they took the money that was allocated for spot bonuses and reallocated it toward these diversity initiatives. So the employees got together and they wrote a letter to management that was like, hey, if this is actually important to the company, it seems like the company should fund it and not the employees. ...
And what I think a lot of people they're saying it, but they're almost too afraid to say it, is these diversity initiatives aren't going to do anything. This is stupid. Like you're wasting this money when we could have it because there's going to be a depression and we need it. I don't think it's going to happen. We're going to get those diversity initiatives if we had to be held down and have them inserted somewhere.
Hey, can we just defund the police? No. We're going to do this other little thing instead.
Instead, we're going to take an episode of The Golden Girls off the air.
It's like, wait, that's not what I asked for. It's like the monkey's paw. You ask for one thing, but you get something else instead.
And another thing that you will accept whether you like it or not. I don't care if the market doesn't want it. We will have foldable phones. It doesn't matter what you think. And of course, Samsung is the one saying that. They are absolutely determined that we get foldable phones.
Samsung is reportedly working on a more affordable Galaxy Fold. This is going to still have a foldable screen, or maybe it just folds and doesn't have foldable screens.
It folds once. This is a butterfly look.
Isn't that cool?
You can fold it one time in an emergency situation.
So yeah, they that's very expensive. What was it, like $2,000 for that thing? So they, I guess, kind of recognize that.
It was so expensive and pointless that even I didn't buy it.
So they're like, you know what? We're gonna shoot for between $900 and $1,100, a reasonable price, people.
That's still really expensive.
So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not going to buy one. Not interested in folding my phone.
Not interested, no.
When it comes to data storage, I always love to throw these stories in here where this just Now this doesn't exist yet, but I love it when they just have crazy numbers. They just throw out crazy numbers.
I saw the headline and I was like, I need this. And then I was like, wait, 2026? What?
But they have been. I mean, if you think about it, you get a little jaded to it, but it is crazy. Like, how big was the SD card now? It's just insane.
I think you can get a 2 terabyte SD card.
Yeah. So this is on the other end of the spectrum. This is the old magnetic tape. But the number is just astonishing.
400 terabyte storage drives in our future, according to Fujifilm. So this is LTO. We're on LTO 8. That's LTO 13. So that's several generations of improvement. The biggest LTO you can get right now, I think, is 28 terabytes, which doesn't seem large enough to me.
This is, what was the name? Strontium ferrite to replace barium ferrite.
Strontium ferrite, the data density is not there. And the article points out that the data density on this magnetic tape is still nowhere near that of mechanical hard drives. But yeah, our 400 terabyte future is not happening until next year at the earliest.
How about 768 terabyte? The extreme end of the spectrum here.
Yeah. Oh, I guess you can get 192 terabytes right now.
Exciting. So you can look forward to that.
Or at least the specification is written.
That, if things continue along the same trajectory that they are now, it's really going to help with, creating the backup of the internet for when things go offline forever.
You can get a lot of, I think I could get all the life, like the usable life data stuff in 2 terabytes. Because, a copy of Wikipedia and like a bunch of survival manuals and things like that.
Yeah, sure. Be very useful. Although, you'd have to take really good care of that tape.
Yeah. Or just have like 7 copies of it. That's like my Model M strategy. I've got enough Model M's to last me until I'm 80. And if I die before then, okay, then that's fine. But at the rate at which I'm consuming Model M keyboards, I should have enough to last until I'm 80.
You're going to have them buried with you?
Maybe just one.
Oh. What about just pop all the keys off and have them loose in there?
Yeah, like sprinkled over your grave.
Oh, like Scrooge McDuck with keycaps?
Or you could just spread my ashes, but it's just full of keycaps.
Oh, that would be awesome. Be cremated and then go to the Unicomp factory where they still make Model M keyboards and have my ashes imbued into a limited edition Level 1 Model M keyboard for you guys.
Oh, do you think anyone would pay for that?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm all for
Someone in the in the comments tell us if you would pay for a Wendell keyboard that's literally made out of his ashes.
I'm all for cremation. I want to be cremated. But I learned, the actual process. Have you ever looked into that?
Yeah, it's really horrifying.
Like, your body cavity, your torso, no matter how long it burns, it kind of keeps its shape. So they have a big rod that they go in there and, smash it down at halfway point.
Yeah.
What a terrible job. How many weeks after you start do you think you get jaded to that?
It'd probably be pretty quick. See, when I was 10 or 11, a bear came onto the property and it died, and we burned it like that, and it was a horrible smell, and it smelled like burning hair at first, and then it was a worse smell than burning hair, and then we had to poke it and do terrible things to it, and it was a mess.
Why wouldn't you just bury it?
It was too big. Nobody wanted to dig, and the ground was hard, and it was nobody wanted to fool with it.
How did you kill the bear?
308. It also ate a horse.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So it had to burn that as well. But yeah, the whole
a busy weekend.
Yeah,
dead bear's a dead bear.
The torso, and it was just it was like it was like a hollowed out cavity at first, and it was just the smell was it was bad.
Yeah, that's what they describe. Plus, they apparently don't necessarily clean all of the ashes out every time.
Yeah.
So the urn you get is potpourri.
It's a best.
It doesn't matter, but it's just something to think about. Now, you alluded to this earlier, and this is terrifying, especially when we talk about Tesla and the whole NVIDIA Mercedes thing, where our cars are more and more going down the road of software as a service. It's disgusting. But when you think about self-driving tech, okay, you can turn that on and off and blah, blah, blah. It's disgusting, but I get it. It's a feature that's purely, it's not mechanical in any way. It's just in the software of the car. But what about things that are mechanical?
Heated seats as a service. BMW wants to sell car features on demand. BMW says it's a way to try before you buy, but do people want an extra monthly fee? So BMW is going to pay to have heated seats installed in all their cars, which is, a standardized thing, and then they'll just turn it on and off with software, because of course that makes sense.
There's going to be some big money in hacking BMWs if they do this.
There was science fiction from like 1969 where you had to pay 5 or 10 cents to open the door. Like the door, it was a door as a service, and you had to pay 5 or 10 cents every time you wanted to open the door. And it was like people were like, "That's never going to happen."
They previously tried to do their nav system as software as a service, but the backlash was so huge they backed down from that. So you got to wonder what will happen with this.
Even stuff like the nav as a service doesn't make any sense, because it's like, I'll just plug my phone in and deal with it that way, because this is BS.
Oh, do you know Android Auto it just doesn't work.
Android Auto is just garbage anyway.
I plugged it in because I needed the map for the first time in a long time, and it just kept crashing. And I was like, that's weird. So I went online and I Googled it. And I was like, maybe it's something with my car. No. Every model, people were like, oh yeah, this is happening with me too. Me too. And it was always a different car. It just doesn't work anymore.
It was literally a display protocol. All the whole point of Android Auto.
It didn't work real good before.
No, it was trash, but now it just doesn't function.
But the whole point was like, you just have a display in your car, just a dumb display. Mm-hmm. And the USB is a way of sending a display signal from your phone to your car, like VGA. How did they mess up VGA?
Oh, but they've also got this new cool feature, which doesn't work because it doesn't work at all. Projection. So you don't have to plug in the USB anymore. But it doesn't work because it crashes every time.
This is why Zoom could take over the universe. You got all these people working on all these projects, and they forget that their software has to be unobtrusive and not trash. And
it just needs to work first and foremost.
We need to introduce a wizard with 12 steps. It's like, I don't think that's going to make it easier on the users.
Unfortunately, disgusting things like charging you for your heated seats every month is exactly what major corporations want to do right now. It's not enough, because what do you think the margin is on a BMW?
Something insane.
It's crazy, because you got to remember that the dealership is taking a big bite too.
Yeah. Like
everybody's making money all the way down the line there, except for the consumer. And when you're sold something like a phone that costs several $1,000s, that should be a one-time transaction, right? I mean, they're making a lot of money. That's a high margin item. But for Samsung, it's never enough.
Ads are taking over Samsung's Galaxy smartphones, and it needs to stop. When you buy a $2,000 smartphone, it shouldn't be the product. This is complaining about ads showing up in the dialer. So
look at that.
The phone dialer has an ad. This is, I guess, locate. There's like a new tab or something in the dialer, and it's like, oh, here's places near you.
Oh, Bixby.
Oh, I hate Bixby. I really am thinking, is it time to transition back to a dumb phone? Is it time?
It's time to transition to something that's not Samsung, because the hubris of the Bixby button. And before you say, oh, you can reprogram the Bixby button, kind of, sort of. They giveth and they taketh away. You were briefly able to reprogram it, and a lot of people reprogrammed it. And then they were like, you know what? On Android 9, on Verizon, we need to stop that. And so guess what doesn't work anymore? And then there's third-party software. It's a game of cat and mouse. Just, I've got my FX Tech phone now. I don't even care.
So yeah, that's unfortunate. It's not a good look. And the other thing that I should have put this with the other story, the big merger, one of the conditions of that was it's like, hey bro, you can't own both of these companies. There has to be some sort of competition, of at least pretend that there's some competition. So that whole Boost Mobile thing, you got to sell it. Now the interesting thing was, when they were batting their numbers back and forth, they're like, well, Boost Mobile is probably worth like $6 billion, right? Ooh.
Dish buys prepaid carrier Boost Mobile for $1.4 billion as a result of T-Mobile's Sprint merger. The deal will advance Dish's 5G plans. Sorry for anybody that's using Boost Mobile. You're probably looking at about double your currently monthly bill. Sorry. For no change in service. Probably the service will be worse.
Unfortunate. And you'll get Dish advertisements with your billing. That's not the only thing. It's going to get more expensive. If you're one of those people who wanted to be a cable cutter but couldn't really commit to it, one of the things you could do was get your same cable TV, but just get it over the internet and pay somebody else for it, like Google. And for a while, it was $35 for a very short while. Since then, they've been jacking it up time after time, and now they've done it again.
YouTube TV jacks up pricing to $64.99, the most expensive cable TV alternative. Yep, a lot of people abandoning ship, I imagine.
Yeah, say who in their right mind would pay almost $70 for YouTube TV?
I look for the cord. I look for the cord cutter numbers for like the last, because it should be out, right? Because July, and those numbers don't seem to be out yet. But I imagine that the last quarter's cord cutting numbers are just insane.
I want to take cable off of my plan, but every time I've changed my plan, they've broken something and my internet went out, and I'm afraid to do it while we're locked down because you can't get anybody out to your house if they completely destroy it.
Yeah.
Like they literally, I'm afraid of their incompetence so much that I'm waiting for a window to change my plan.
The brief reopening window. It's like, we're going to be open for this week and then we're going to shut down again next week.
I'm going to save probably like $50 a month. Now, for that extra money that I think it was $10 or $15 increase. What do you get? You get the Viacom channels. That's the only difference. MTV and Nickelodeon are the big ones.
Who cares?
What's on MTV these days?
The new Beavis and Butthead.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, MTV is one of those weird things that, like, during our lifetime, well, not Krista's, but you and I saw it when it came to be, and then how it morphed into something completely irrelevant.
It happens with a lot of channels. Like the History Channel was amazing at first. It was awesome. And then it became about ancient aliens.
MTV,
because that makes more money,
caused a lot of distress in our fundamentalist Christian household. My extended family as well. They were not happy about that evil coming into their homes.
The radiation is just showering the house with this unseen evil at all times. Yeah, exactly. Actual quote.
It was Satan was just like coming through that coax. Bitcoin. We had the big Bitcoin halving, and not a whole lot has happened. It has gone up recently, I think. Although the big gains from the halving, I think there's like a 6-month lead time or something like that.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about Bitcoin, or one of the cool things about it, is when big things happen, it's all out there for you to see publicly. You don't know who, but you know how much.
Someone mysteriously sent almost $1 billion in Bitcoin. An unknown person or entity just sent a whole lot of money while hiding in plain sight. It was like 993 million, something like that. And we don't know if it was an exchange, an individual, or what.
Somebody lost a bet.
It was Elon, right? Here's the conspiracy. It was Elon Musk sending money to Kanye West.
Is that why he sold all his houses? That makes sense. He went all the cash, bought Bitcoin with it, and now he's gonna send it out.
To support the Kanye West campaign because 2020 wasn't weird enough.
God, can you imagine? I mean, it's not that much different than Trump, but I feel like at least Trump accomplished some actual business things. He might have gotten a lot of help, yes, but he did work that out somewhat on his own. And it's not.
That would mean a Kardashian would be our first lady.
Oh wow!
The implications are just.
Now, okay. Here's an engagement challenge. Every first lady has a pet project, right? I think Michelle's was nutrition.
Yeah.
What's Melania's? I don't know what Melania's is.
I have no idea. I feel like Melania just doesn't want to be there, but she can't leave effectively.
Yeah. So what would the Kardashian? Which one is it? Kim? Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
What would her first lady project be? Engagement challenge. Walmart Walmart has modified its hours like many stores have. They're not doing the 24-hour thing anymore. I don't think they've gone back, right? What time do they close now? Like 11? 12?
Yeah. Earlier sometimes. They've closed at like 8 or 9 p.m. a few times.
That would make more sense if they're doing this. So the parking lot, which is usually open at any given time, isn't seeing a lot of use. How can you repurpose a parking lot?
Walmart is converting its parking lots to pop-up drive-in theaters for the summer. 160 Walmart parking lots will be transformed to drive-ins. Walmart hasn't said if they're going to charge for admission, but they are going to charge for concessions, and you can drive through and pick up your concessions. Walmart's going to make a lot of money that way for sure, but yeah, I don't know if they're going to be charged for the drive-in or not.
There's actually a drive-in in my hometown, and you got charged to come in, but it was like really low. It was cheaper than standard movie. And then they made all their money on concession.
It'd be great to go and get like one of those whole rotisserie chickens. Just eat that while you're watching the movie.
Yeah, it's like I want all the self-loathing and just yeah, this movie's amazing.
I want a
Drive-in
rotisserie.
theaters should always be a thing. Like, I always thought that they were a better experience for less money, and you can bring your own food. Like,
Oh, I bet they're trying to figure out a way not to let you do that at these. But start me with a rotisserie chicken, and then in 25 minutes, when the movie's really getting on, bring me like a gallon of Great Value vanilla.
No, it would be a hot apple pie and a gallon of milk. Just from the grocery side, just bring it out.
And then right as the movie ends, everybody just piles into that bathroom inside the Walmart. Just destroys it. Krista, do you have any news on the Lord of the Rings Amazon series?
I just know that they have let the cast and crew back into New Zealand, so they will be resuming filming soon.
Exciting. And they won't be alone, although I guess these guys aren't filming in New Zealand, but they won't be alone on Amazon when it comes to high-profile rabid fandom TV shows, because now we have another exciting one that has been announced.
Oh, it's me. Fallout TV series from Westworld creators in the works at Amazon. I feel like this will be a disappointment.
It almost has to be, right?
I feel like
Yeah.
the author of this article doesn't know what they're doing because they should have had Ron Perlman in the picture.
So these are the creators, and these are also the creators of Westworld. Now, I've never watched Westworld, but I've heard a lot of people say that it was really good, and then it got really bad.
I haven't watched the last season.
Yeah, almost everyone I've talked to said the same thing.
They will continue to make Westworld. Now, they have this deal where they make one episode, and Amazon can pass or not, but no matter what they do, they get paid full price. So I think at that point, like, they're probably just going to make it, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? So we've had 5. Well, the first one was in the Mojave Desert as well, right? So we've only had 5 areas. What geographic location do you think this will be in?
I think that they have to do it in the West. They're going to reuse Westworld sets.
I think that, so they'll do the Mojave.
Yeah. Seems likely. That or a bunch of underground stuff.
Was Fallout 1, was that the Mojave Desert?
Oh, I can't remember. All I remember is the earlier Fallouts were so much more cerebral.
Yeah. And, of course, you got DC, Boston, West Virginia. Yeah, I think you got to do the desert.
The West Virginia one, I had such high hopes, and it was so disappointing.
You know, they redid
As
it.
usual.
They have, like, they put actual NPCs and stuff in it now.
Huh. Theoretically, I own it. I guess I could go back and...
I don't think anybody was all that impressed afterwards.
I didn't hear anyone talk about it.
Now, this is not the story we're doing here, but did you guys hear about the hot new Battle Royale that they, like, snuck out last week? They're doing this thing now where they don't announce games. Just one day it pops up on Twitch. They give it to like 1 or 2 of the big streamers. And then the only way you can get into the beta is to watch the stream for hours and hours and hours. And it seems like a brilliant plan. I can't remember the name of it. Hyper something. But it's like a really fast-paced Battle Royale.
Engagement challenge.
And that's the new hotness, I guess, right now.
Huh.
So like everybody's watching that because they're trying to get a copy of it. So if you're a streamer, you desperately want to please them because you know you're going to get big numbers because they're not just watching it to watch you play it. They're watching it because they want it. And that's the only way they can get it. Now, one game that did not release that way, perhaps to their detriment, was Crucible. I'd heard of this, but I'd completely forgotten it existed after I'd heard of it because no one cares.
After a lackluster launch, Amazon has pulled Crucible back into a closed beta weeks after the game's release. Oh, man. It was free to play, but apparently...
not free enough.
Yeah, it bottomed out at only a few thousand players.
Krista, what's the Overwatch 2 timeline? Has that changed because of the condition?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything else about it. I'm still enjoying Overwatch 1. It's been, 3 years? I've got my money's worth out of that game.
But isn't Overwatch 2 basically going to just be more Overwatch 1?
Yeah, essentially. Just more maps and characters, which they'll be released in Overwatch 1 as well, so it's like...
The criticisms
really
for
like
this
it.
one is that everything was just really bland, and they tried to take stuff from every game and just sort of stuff it in there, and it didn't seem like they really knew anything about what they were doing.
I would have said that stuffing Minecraft into PUBG wouldn't work, but hey, look at Fortnite.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't work when they did that. It didn't work till they put the Battle Royale into it. They just went over to PUBG, and they were like, oh, we made this. The next generation consoles are probably coming out before Christmas. I mean, who knows? Everything's in question now with if half the population's dead by then, they probably won't. But it seems like it'll take a lot to stop them. And when that happens, we'll all be buying new games.
We'll be buying new games for the motherland.
And you might be buying less new games. Not because you're jobless, but because they're more expensive now.
NBA 2K21 lists suggesting that next-gen AAA titles will be $10 more expensive. So $70. We'll have it's Australia prices finally in the United States.
No, but you know that they're going to take Australia up to 80. They
Yeah,
might just go 85.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll do it. Whatever.
Oh, and thus begins the runaway inflation here in the United States.
Now, what's interesting is you can get the same game, although it will obviously be less graphically beautiful, for the current generation of consoles, and it'll still be $60. You only pay $70 for the higher res version. Also, they're not telling us how much either next-gen console is going to cost. Like
it's gonna go up.
they're not willing to tell us because I think they're afraid the other one's going to undercut them.
Yeah, that's
Which-
likely.
I guess it's a good situation to be in, but they're throwing out stuff like $750.
You can get such a nice computer for that.
Now we tried the fake meat. Have you had any since then,
No.
Krista?
No.
We did get a box of I think it was the plant-based sausage biscuits in the break room, and they were gone immediately. So somebody here really liked them.
So you didn't try any of them?
I was gonna try one, but it was like the 8 count, and they were gone in like 3 or 4 days.
That's impressive since, not many people in the office right now.
That was a few weeks ago.
Cleaning lady?
But it might have been.
Yeah, because she's like vegetarian, right?
That was probably about a month and a half ago now.
But with sausage, the same as the Impossible Burgers, that is a ground meat.
Yes.
So the big problem is like, okay, are we just going to give up all the texture in our meat? Are we going to be eating ground beef for the rest of our life, or ground plant or whatever? If we go into the fake meat world, one company says no, we have the answer.
3D printed plant-based steaks could arrive in 2021. These steaks promise to mimic meat texture better than other plant-based alternatives. This talks about how mushroom fibers a lot of the time are used to fake that, meat fiber-like fibers. And this is saying, oh no, we can just 3D print the fibers and that'll be a much more realistic texture. So we're that much closer to a food replicator at this point.
My favorite method of 3D printing steak? Growing a cow.
Sent a cow. I want to imagine that there's like a competing team of scientists, and like their manager guy is like, guys, we're entering the world of 3D printable meats, and Senecal is going to be obsolete. You have got to get the Senecal project finished immediately, or we're just not. We're going to be obsolete.
It's like, God damn it, Frank! We've lost 5 scientists already. It's too violent. It's like, no, it'll work. We'll figure it out.
I thought that we had made amazing progress when I saw the meat glue videos, and you should watch the meat glue videos, and then you should read about all the terrible things about the meat glue, because your local grocer is probably already using the meat glue dust. But like if you breathe the meat glue, it will glue your lungs together.
That's
your
fine.
lungs are made of meat, so it's bad.
But all those delicious stuffed chicken cutlets, I'm living on those at this point. Except they're out of stock.
I can't wait for the whatever's in meat glue. Like if you had like an applicator that was intelligent enough to not just sandblast it. Like if you had a gunshot wound to the chest, in addition to like the bleed stop thing, that would probably just sew you right back together.
You know who that'd be really useful for is the Chinese organ harvesters.
Just pop a kidney out and just sprinkle some dust on it. Maybe that's what they use in RimWorld. It's because it's like I've got a hunter-gatherer level technology, and I can pop that kidney out and pop it in somebody else, and it's fine.
Pop this one back in the holding cell. We'll get the rest of it later. I'm going home today. I've pulled a double. Tired. And the once again, companies doing everything they can to signal that they're with it, they're hip. Please don't burn down our buildings. please just stop what you're doing. We'll do whatever you say.
Go back to normal.
The latest one is Reddit.
Reddit finally bans hate speech and removes 2,000 racist and violent forums, including The Donald. I wonder why they removed that. Oh yeah, no, it's like it was really bad. There was a lot of really racist and anti-Semitic stuff in there. So let's. I don't think anybody shed a tear.
But a lot of people have pointed out, and I guess, maybe it's work in progress, but there are a lot of really questionable subreddits that still exist. Certainly that I would think are more violent and extremist than the Donald. Although I didn't spend any time in the Donald. I don't know how bad it was exactly, but just the names of the other one really shock. So we'll see. I don't think there were a lot of... I guess, these users were there for some reason, but who goes to Reddit thinking, yeah, I'm going to get a down-the-sitter political experience here. There's no bias on Reddit. I guess, where else do you go? And finally, one of the big outrages that comes with the speaking out movement hit a online... Actually, I think these are not usually online. These are usually in person, but because of the current situation, it was going to be online for the first time. They were gearing up to finally bring it back, and then scandal hit.
EVO 2020 online tournament canceled after allegations against the co-founder. I totally missed this one. I don't even know what EVO is.
EVO is it's not a game.
Is it not?
It's a tournament. I mean, there's probably a game. There's probably a game called EVO, I'm sure, but this is a tournament where I think they started out as like a Street Fighter tournament, but it has since expanded to a bunch of different games, and you go in person and have these big tournaments for fighting games and stuff like that. So this is a crazy story. Here's what happened. So EVO, I think it used to be like they would actually go to arcades and have these little tournaments, and it grew and grew and grew till they like organized it, and then they would go around the country to different arcades and host these events. It was like an event organization. So there was a handful of insiders who started it out from this one arcade somewhere, and it was like a mini golf course. And one of the youngest one of those people wrote this big long story about one of the founders and what he did to him. Now here's what he did, and this doesn't seem that crazy to me, but so the victim was 18, first of all, right? So this guy would give him game tokens and challenge him to stunts. Some of those stunts were strip down to your underwear and go jump in the it was a mini golf course, so they had like water traps. It was like, go jump in the water trap just in your underwear, and you'd get tokens for that. And then one day the victim here was Asian, and they came upon a debate about the size of Asian penises.
Oh no.
And he insisted, no, that's not true. It's a stereotype. Mine is actually above average. And the offender was like, prove it and I'll give you $20. And he did. And so he at the time did not know that this leader guy was gay. Mr. Wizard is that guy's username. And after he found that out, he kind of felt like a victim. So he reported all this, and based on that, and the Mr. Wizard guy, I guess, confirmed that it did happen. So now, shut the whole thing down.
Wow. For God's sakes, nobody tell him what happened in the 70s.
Now here's the double standard in my opinion. For $20, I could see so many 18-year-old vaginas right now. As many as I would like. Live and in person. For another 20, actually I haven't been there in like a decade, but maybe inflation. But for another 20, maybe 30, I could have those rubbed against me. So we're going to cancel the thing over all that? I don't know. It's an interesting world we're living in, chat. Cancel culture.
I'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Chris is just like, I have nothing.
I have nothing to add.